Welcome back to Combat Sports Weekly. This is the roundtable where each guy will get 30 seconds to chime in on one of the three topics I'll be throwing out at them. So, gentlemen, let's get it started. Roundtable. Introducing first, he's the co-host of Mike on the Mic on 610 AM, Ed Nunez. Ed, welcome. Pleasure to have you for the first time.
Well, Jorge, I've been watching for the last couple of weeks. You guys do a great job. It's a pleasure to be here.
We really appreciate that. And again, welcome.
You bet.
To his right, James Lindemuth, also of 610 The Sports Animal. When can people catch you?
5:35 on Thursdays on 610 The Sports Animal. It's our boxing and MMA segment. 2 times in 1 week, Jorge. This is too much for us to be in.
I think I'm okay with it so far.
Got
All
it.
right. To his right, Micah Frankel, writer, blogger, reporter, whatever you want to call him, he does it all. Cage Minds MMA, welcome back.
CageMinds.com, Cage Minds MMA show on YouTube.
Perfect. Let's get to it right away, and I'll start with you, Micah. I'll throw it right to you. Frankie Edgar versus Urijah Faber. It takes place in the Philippines, which is cool. The Philippines going to the UFC going to the Philippines for the first time. But what does this do for either guy? I mean, for Frankie Edgar, to me, it seems lose everything if he loses.
He loses, it's a bad situation. But then again, it's Frankie Edgar. He never really loses. He lost back-to-back fights to Benson Henderson, lost to Aldo, and I'm still thinking people were shouting out for him to get the next title shot after that. So a loss is never really a loss for him, but it's a pretty big fight for a fan base of 2 guys that have big fan contingents.
What do you think about the UFC going to the Philippines?
I'd love to see them expanding, bringing in the new talent from all over the world sport.
Exactly. You got a little more time on this. How do you feel about one guy coming up in weight against the potentially #1 guy after this fight for his respective division?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly going to be a challenge for Urijah Faber, and like to echo what Micah said, it is really kind of a lose-lose situation for Frankie, unless he just goes out there and absolutely dominates, which is what I think it's going to take for this to be a positive. Urijah, there's nothing but upside for him. I mean, if he goes out there and beats a Frankie Edgar, people then start talking about him. And Urijah is one of those fighters that has never really lived up to what people thought he could do.
Yeah. Ed, what do you think about that, of a guy who's potentially the next fighter for the championship, or he's in contention, fighting a guy from a lower weight class?
Well, he's got more than anything to lose is Frankie Edgar. He's Urijah Faber is 32-7, 17-4 Frankie Edgar, but as you said, he's got more to lose than anyone. Urijah Faber, the California kid, always a great crowd entertainer. But in this case here, Frankie Edgar's got everything to lose. And I expect Urijah Faber to give him everything that he has.
And I think I agree with that. Is it across the board that Frankie Edgar is going to win?
Oh, yeah.
If so, how? I'll give you guys some of my time for
Decision.
Decision? Boring?
No, it'll be entertaining because they're going to mix it up. It's going to be him having to do what he did to Cub Swanson, the Faber, keeping him off balance, mixing up the strikes and the takedowns. I think he's just going to be too fast.
James?
I think Frankie finishes this fight. I think his corner and his team is going to tell him, hey, you've got to finish this, or else we walk out of here with our heads held low, even with the decision.
Yeah. And Ed, is this going to be unanimous here?
You know what? I think it is Frankie Edgar, but I think Urijah Faber, as I said, gives him everything he has. Everything he has to offer and then some.
And I think he has to lay everything on the line, especially of what's happened recently. Of course, he's on a pretty good positive swing here, but this is a big fight for Frankie Edgar, win or lose. So it'll do something, either devastating or something spectacular for his career to fight for that title. Next topic, James, we'll start with you. I know we're a couple of weeks away from it, but let's go ahead and do a UFC 187 preview. Daniel Cormier, Anthony Johnson, the main event, Chris Weidman, and Vitor Belfort in the co-main. Your thoughts on the card and your winners for this?
I'm excited about this card. I mean, it's stacked. I mean, although it's tempered excitement. If I had told you 6 months ago that we'd be watching Cormier fight Johnson for the title because John Jones smashed into a pregnant lady and fled the scene, you'd tell me, what's in the Starbucks you're drinking.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a good fight. I do think Cormier has the advantage here. I just think that physically he's going to be able to impose himself a little bit on Johnson, and I don't think that Johnson's fought a guy that could do that to him just yet. So I've got Cormier winning that one, and I've got Weidman beating Belfort. Belfort was great in his day, but that day's gone.
Micah, how disappointed are you that Jones isn't on this card? And 2, of course, your prediction for the 2 winners.
Oh, I'm so sad. I'm so sad for Anthony Johnson. I have to listen to Cormier's fashion of trash talk calling him weak. I'm like, Cormier's the mental midget, the one that got beat down by Jones and is trying to talk himself into being the disputed light heavyweight champion. I think Johnson wins. If it goes to decision, that's Cormier's best chance to win, but I think Johnson's going to knock him out. There's just too much power in him at 205. And Weidman has out-grappled Damian Maia. outstruck Machida and Silva. He beats Belfort by submission.
It's nice that we disagree finally.
Yeah, finally. Ed, some time for you. What do you think about Jones being out? I mean, are you disappointed? And also, who you think between Cormier and Johnson?
I don't think anybody that, you know, he follows UFC is not disappointed that Jones isn't on that card. You know, he's got to get his personal life under control before he comes back. He has some problems he has to take care of. It's obvious. I like Cormier in that fight. I really do. I really like Daniel Cormier. Johnson, as Michael mentioned, he's got a lot of power there, and it could end up in a knockout for him. But I like Cormier in that fight. As far as Weidman and Belfort, I'm going to go with Chris Weidman. I really think he's got the wrestling moves. I really like the way he beat Anderson Silva. I like Chris Weidman.
Definitely like Chris Weidman as well. And that Daniel Cormier, Anthony Johnson, to me, it's a coin toss. I mean, the odds are extremely close. Neither guy is more than a 2-1 underdog or favorite. Cormier slightly favored in that one. So Anthony Johnson goes from fighting John Jones, potentially a bout where he may have gotten dominated, to where he has a legitimate chance of taking over that championship. And not knowing how long Jones will be out, who knows? We might be in a reign here for Anthony Johnson
Rumble
for
Johnson
the next
era,
year. The
perhaps.
Rumble Johnson
Rumble, young
era
man,
with
Rumble.
the asterisk there on the side. Let's go ahead and move on to the boxing. Huge boxing knockout this weekend by Canelo Alvarez in front of 31,000 people over James Kirkland. Can he regain the boxing spotlight that he had before fighting Floyd?
I'll tell you what, here's what I thought. I thought that was big for boxing based on Pacquiao Mayweather, which a lot of people thought, James and I talked about it, was a turkey, didn't live up to expectations. I watched that fight 3 times, Jorge. I loved it. I think he's 25 years old. And people wanted to see a brawl. They got it. There wasn't a whole bunch of ducking and missing, a lot of knockout power. I thought boxing needed that. I like this kid. I think he is the next boxing star. I really do.
He's only 24 years old. How many more fights do you think he potentially have? He's almost at 50 right now. You think we see him another 20, 30 times in the ring?
You know, and that's a good point, because I think at this point in his career, he has already had 50 fights. Do you want to, you know, continue to absorb that kind of punishment and get hit and keep getting hit? But that was such an entertaining fight. He reminded me of Duran, Julio Cesar Chavez, the great champion, Mexican champion from Mexico. He's from Mexico as well.
Yeah.
So I like Canelo. I really thought boxing needed that. Boxing, the question was being on 610 a couple weeks ago, is boxing dead? No, it's not. I think that was a great shot in the arm that they very badly needed.
James and Mike, I'll split some of my time with you guys, so don't be afraid to go over.
No, it's, he certainly can. One of the keys that you've seen in boxing all throughout history is that Mexican fighters, if they perform well, will have huge, huge followings. And he does. He absolutely does have that following. A huge knockout. And this is something we talked about, that fight, I'd have paid $100 to see that knockout, not the $100 to see, again, the egg that was laid the week before. He certainly can. Now, whether Mayweather will fight him again and give him that financial spotlight remains to be seen.
Yeah. Something like 2.1 million people, I think, tuned into that fight. I think the carryover from the Mayweather fight may have helped a little bit, but 31,000 people, what do you think about that?
31,000 people is ridiculous. That's like 4 UFC fight nights or something. That is a great number, and that knockout was just definitely well needed. There's been great matchups, but we haven't seen a knockout in the last couple months, and his name is on fire right now.
Yeah, so as a hardcore MMA guy, will a guy like Canelo and potentially him fighting Miguel Cotto next or Gennady Golovkin bring you into the sport? Will that suck you in and you think others like you?
You can do it.
I'm more interested to see that kind of a fight than my thought was ever towards purchasing that egg that was laid.
Well, definitely, hopefully Canelo, the guys like Gennady Golovkin and Cotto could definitely bring fire up to the sport. I think, Cotto is going to get wiped away by Canelo if they fight, unfortunately, but nonetheless, we still need those bangers to fight. But that'll do it for this episode. Next week, we'll have a modified show, a couple of interviews. We'll see you guys next week.